or worse, drop in the 82nd Airborne to try to go in there and destroy it all with hand grenades or whatever they want, in that kind of a sense. But we absolutely should stay out of this war. I mean, we're already in it, but we should get out to the degree that America is participating in it all, and the diplomatic cover that we're providing for it and everything else. We're sure, just as your previous guest, Senator Rand Paul, explained, we are sure to face all sorts of untold, unintended consequences from participation in this aggressive war, and we should absolutely stop as fast as we can. And one more thing, I'm sorry, but it's the top headline on antiwar.com. A solid majority, Piers, 53% of Trump voters. They did a YouGov poll, and they broke it down. Male, female, young, old, liberal, conservative, Republican, Democrat, every way. In every case, majorities are opposed, and including a solid majority, 53% of Trump voters, with only 19% supporting. So that is just the overwhelming consensus of the American people against this war and any further participation in it by the United States government.
Tax day has passed, but for millions of Americans, that's where the trouble begins. The IRS is now ramping up enforcement for those who missed the April deadline or still owe back taxes. Well, today's sponsor, Tax Network USA, can still help. If your books are a mess, if you're self-employed, or if you're a business owner, Tax Network USA specializes in cleaning up financial chaos and getting you back on track quickly. They say the IRS is applying enforcement pressure at levels they've never seen before. But even after the deadline, it's not too late to take control. The consultation is completely free. Acting now could stop penalties, threatening letters, and surprise levies before they escalate. Call 1-800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/peers. That's tnusa.com/peers. Let Tax Network USA make the next move, not the IRS. Yeah, I mean, Emily Austin, it's a fascinating split now of people that are ostensibly pro-Trump or were at the election, but now split down the middle. Those who are against Trump's current policy here, Candace Owens, Dave Smith, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Alex Jones, Matt Walsh. Those in favor, Charlie Kirk, Lindsey Graham, Ben Shapiro, Dave Rubin, Mark Levine. I mean, it's extraordinary to see the conservative right in America basically cut in half here. And, you've got to look at maybe the future of MAGA, if not Trump himself, might well hinge on what happens with this war in Iran.
Right. Well, first and foremost, I think time is the best teller. And there's a reason we elected Donald Trump in office is because ultimately we have to just trust his decision making. The banter between the right wing doesn't bother me at all. I think it's very healthy to hear other perspectives, and it's healthy to engage in this dialogue in a very respectful manner, which I give credit to the right wingers for the most part, aside from the Tucker memes, which are very justified. It's very healthy to see that online. However, I want to confront what Scott was saying. I'm glad you're anti-war and you're anti-aggression, but at what point can you live like that knowing that Iran is not? Everyone who's against striking Iran's nuclear sites, we'll talk about the regime change later, I just have to ask them, okay, for now you want to stay out of it. And yes, right now it's an imminent threat to Israel until it's not. Then it will become an imminent threat to America. And let me tell you, once the nuclear weapon's already developed, good luck combating that then. So why don't you take the smarter decision to take care of the issue before it becomes too late? Because I'm glad you're anti-war. I don't think Khomeini cares what you think.
But Emily, out of interest,
okay, well, thank you for your question. I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, go on, you can answer.
Yeah, sure. Iran is no threat to the United States whatsoever, and no one who knows anything about it believes that. The biggest advances that they've made in the region in the last 25 years was when George W. Bush gave them Baghdad. Everyone knows they're in the Non-Proliferation Treaty. They have a safeguards agreement with the IAEA. Every bit of their civilian nuclear program is safeguarded. And this whole time, it has been a latent nuclear deterrent. Just like Japan, just like Germany, just like Brazil, They have proven that they have mastered the fuel cycle and have not made the decision to begin to attempt to make a nuclear weapon. That's a fact. You can scoff, but Tulsi Gabbard,
but it's also,
the director of
Scott,
national
it's also
intelligence,
worth
just
saying,
verified that in February and again in March. And apparently there was a new intelligence report just last week that said the same thing, that they are not even trying to make a nuclear weapon right now. So you can scoff, but that's basically just taking the place of you not knowing anything about the details.
Right,
here.
so let me jump in there.
Iran is a very weak country. They cannot threaten the USA. Not in the next 200 years could they threaten this country.
Okay, Scott, so let me counter
break.
that. Let me counter that slightly, because the atomic agency that you referenced there, their report made it clear that Iran has gone from a 3% uranium enrichment to 60% now. You need to get to 90% to make a nuclear bomb.
For medical research.
Yeah, well, hang on one second, mate.
I can explain all that.
Hang on one second. So there's clearly been a massive acceleration in their uranium enrichment program. Then it comes down to trust, whether you trust Iran not to take this further to a 90%.
Let me explain.
I would say
real quick.
Well, let me finish my question. So the Atomic Agency, I saw one of the people from the agency on Christian Amanpour's show yesterday, and he was saying that in his estimation, he'd seen nothing to suggest that this was going to happen anytime soon. We've got this clip.
If there was some activity which was clandestine or hidden or away from our inspectors, we couldn't know. What we informed and what we reported was that we did not have, as in coincidence with some of the sources you mentioned there, that we did not have any proof of a systematic effort to move into a nuclear weapon.
Now, I thought that was significant, Scott, because certainly I could see.
Well, hang
on. Let me finish. Let me ask you a question. You know, I thought about this a lot before saying anything after the Israel attack, and concluded that I could see some justification for it based on that report. That clarification made me less certain of the justification. However, in the report itself, it then talks about Iran constantly lying and obfuscating, probably hiding stuff, not letting inspectors see stuff. And so it comes down, like I said earlier, doesn't it come down to a question of trust? Why would you trust the Iranian regime as far as you could throw them when it comes to potentially creating a bomb?
I personally, I don't trust any one of them. I don't trust Israel. I don't trust Iran. I don't even trust our fucking government to make decisions.
It doesn't come down to trust at all. And I'll beg the rest of the panel's forgiveness. I'll try to stay quiet later on in the hour here and let y'all talk. But just real quick so you understand, we had a deal in 2015 under which Iran exported every bit of their enriched uranium stockpile to France, who would then turn it into fuel rods and then ship it back to Iran to use in their reactor. Now, the nuclear reactor produces plutonium waste, but they don't have the facility required to reprocess plutonium to get all the impurities out to make weapons fuel. So they had no plutonium route to the bomb. The Russians would come and get the plutonium out of their reactor when it was full and time, every couple of years or whatever. Now, their uranium route to the bomb, because they were exporting every bit of their enriched uranium out of the country, was they have this arbitrary timeline breakout period. They call it the breakout point, that it would take them 1 year if they decided to withdraw from the treaty, kick the inspectors out of the country, and begin to enrich weapons-grade uranium. It would take them a year to have enough to make one bomb with. Now, the new report that came out said that on top of that, it would take them another couple of years to have an actual warhead ready to do anything with it. And I'm sorry this is complicated, but I know people can follow on this if you know anything about the history here. Let me explain real quick now that the Nagasaki bomb was a implosion bomb, a plutonium implosion bomb, which is the type of bomb that can be miniaturized and fit to a missile. But the Hiroshima bomb was a simple gun-type nuke, a uranium nuke, which is a humongous thing. Iran could never fit that on a missile or deliver it to Israel or the United States in a million years. And so if they had a single gun-type nuke or two, it would essentially be to test off a demonstration round in the desert to show that they have one, but it still would not make them an offensive threat to anyone. And as the CIA concluded in 2007, they abandoned all research into a weapons program, even bothering to look into it in 2003 when America got rid of Saddam Hussein for them. And so the fact that they've had now, I'm sorry, get to your your point. Donald Trump left the treaty or the agreement in 2018. Now, Piers, it's complicated, but according to the agreement, Iran is allowed to stop abiding by some of the restrictions in it if America breaks our side of the deal. They actually are still within the larger agreement, even while ceasing to abide by some parts of it. Now, that 60% enriched uranium stockpile that they built up is clearly, just as it was in the Obama years, is clearly simply a card to play in negotiations to deal away. That uranium is there to give up if they can get America to back down and lift the sanctions. That's all it is. If they wanted to make weapons-grade uranium, they could have made weapons-grade uranium. They weren't doing that. They're getting closer because it's a card to play in negotiations. And now and one last point, and then I swear I'll stop, and you made this point. Nothing changed. Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, says nothing changed. They did not break out toward a nuclear weapon. There was no casus belli here, even if you accepted the premise that you could launch a preemptive war to prevent them from getting a nuke, which is a whole other argument. But even if you accept that premise, nothing had changed in Iran other than the timeline, the arbitrary timeline of Trump's demand had expired, and you hear Trump and the rest of the hawks trying to conflate having a nuclear program at all with being on the verge of achieving a nuclear weapons capability. And this is what George W. Bush called shorthanding it. In other words, they just imply a bunch of lies because they can't explain what they mean.
Okay.
And so this whole war is just
I
as
want
unjustified
to
as it could
bring in a little bit, we haven't heard of it. Hang on. Beams Creatine is America's #1, and it's made by a company founded on values like hard work and delivering.
I think the hardest thing people are going to have to deal with it's the proof aspect of if Iran has nukes. We're going based off of assumptions of institutions like Mossad, institutions that I don't think that we can trust. But it is what it is. I think that if it's more so, is there any proof that Iran has developed nuclear bombs or has the capacity? It's obvious that they have the capacity to build, but have they actually done so? And if every single agency has come to the conclusion that, one, that's not have happened, they have not developed any weapons, nor do they have the desire to. I think the problem is that they've come up with, they have enough to do it. That's the issue, but that's 100% Trump's fault when he ripped up the agreement.
We haven't heard from two members of the panel yet. I will come back to
But
you.
I just want to address a point he said before we move on, because contrary to what I said, he keeps saying that Iran's not a threat to America. So since Scott decided to become Iran's mouthpiece, can you please clarify for me what Khomeini means when he says death to America, death to the West?
Everybody says death to America, bro. Like, we've stuck our noses in so much shit internationally. So many people hate us because we destabilized so many countries throughout our history as United States of America when they're involved in foreign affairs. So it's not surprising that people from Iran, or even people are saying death to America. Look at the majority of catastrophes that's happened when it comes to America, especially in the Middle East. It has United States printed on those goddamn bombs. So I think you actually have to think why people hate us so bad. And hating us or hating someone doesn't necessarily give you a right or the green light to bomb them or unalive them or shoot them. They have every right to feel the way they feel about you.
And forceful conversions. Can you translate in the language that you so clearly?
Like, I don't know. I don't understand why you would rather say send people to war because somebody says I don't like you
Understand
or I hate you
that all
or I hope you die.
Permitting. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. So first of all, Khomeini died in 1989. You don't know what you're talking about. Second of all, the chant, you'll notice, all of y'all in the audience and on the panel notice how often the Hawks bring this up and how much heavy lifting these chants are doing. Are you so terrified of chants? In fact, they have no air force. They have no
Exactly.
They have no ability. They have no offensive force that they can threaten this country with. So in other words, you're saying you're really upset because they're hurting your feelings.
Exactly.
By some stupid chant, which of course is terrible politics, and it's a terrible government, but it's not a threat to this country.
When somebody wants to kill you and they are going to kill you, you stop it before it gets too late. No, you are naive. It's okay.
America could have normalized relations with Iran.
This isn't Minority Report. You can't just do shit to prevent it if it hasn't even happened. Like, you don't even have the inkling that there's potential that Iran's going to attack the United States. It's not even a conversation. It's not even a conversation.
But it's not a threat to this country.
When somebody wants to kill you and they are going to kill you,
country.
You stop it before it gets too late. No, you are naive. It's okay.
America
Most
could have
people
normalized relations with Iran 30 years ago.
Trump
We
gave
didn't
him
have to
60
do this
days.
at all.
Trump gave him 60 days, and they were too egotistical to meet at the negotiating
He
table.
had no right to do that.
For this, they had no
They
right
had
to
no right to do
negotiate.
that. They have the right to a civilian
Days.
nuclear program. They're members of the Non-Proliferation
Oh,
Treaty,
Iran
unlike
deserves
Israel,
nuclear weapons.
which has a
Gotcha.
secret nuclear weapons program.
Understood.
She doesn't know
Okay,
what she's
I
As
do
talking
wanna
members of
bring
the
in the
treaty, they
others.
have the right to civilian nuclear
I
technology.
do want to bring in the other
Yes.
two. Look, we've got two other guests who haven't spoken yet. Rob
Right.
O'Neill.
I'm out. Sorry. Go ahead,
No,
guys.
no, it'll be very interesting. Rob O'Neill, you were a Navy SEAL Team 6 guy for a long time, took part in some of the biggest missions American
W. Robert
forces have
O'Neill.
ever
I think
taken
he's the
part
one
in.
that
You
took out.
killed
He's the
Bin
one that
Laden.
took out Bin Laden.
In that
Much
time,
respect.
how big a threat did you determine Iran constituted to the United States?
Well, they were a big threat in Iraq. They were giving the insurgents, both Sunni and Shia, the technology for explosively formed penetrators that killed and maimed, thousands of Americans. And not just them, again, because they have interest in Iraq, because eventually Iran wants they want the free trip over to Israel, which is what they want to do. They want to destroy Israel. They've said it. They're 12ers. A lot of people out there arguing, Ted Cruz especially, when he doesn't know anything about a country, he probably couldn't tell you the difference between a Sunni and a Shia, but there is a difference. And one of the things the Shia said, they can hasten the return of the Mahdi by washing the world in blood. I don't know if you're afraid of the chant "Death to America" or just saying some stuff like that, but yeah, we're going to get the return of our savior, which is not Jesus, by the way. It's Muhammad al-Mahdi, and a nuclear weapon might bring that there. And not to get all religious too, but if you hasten the return, you're just bringing in the Antichrist. I'm not going to get technical there, but let me say this as well. This is the way this needs to be discussed. Both sides, because there's a lot going on that will affect all of us. And I'm happy, we don't get down to stupid name calling or tweeting at someone as a fascist or a Nazi, which is the tendency to go. But Iran certainly is a threat. During the last 4 years of open borders, there's 8,000 terrorists in this country. Iran is a major part of that, and they've activated very experienced cells. October 7th in Israel was not nice, and we got a lot of gun-free zones here, so don't forget that. I've got friends on the International Atomic Energy Agency, and they'll tell me straight up they can't wait to retire to tell me their story, because that's the biggest waste of time. You can't believe a word they say. The United Nations hates the United States and pretty much the West, and Iran's going to lie to you too. So there's part of that there, and everyone wants to hurt everyone else, but this is so complex that if I'm a believer, if one nuclear weapon gets launched by one country, we are going to a nuclear winter, because everyone's going to start freaking out. Everybody, especially the greedy people, they can hit the button. We can all hit the button. It's going to hurt all of us. I've been to war a ton. On 9/12/2001, I would have invaded any country in the world. Having seen everything, having seen the depths of the, our military-industrial complex, I don't call myself anti-war or pro-war. I'm an unapologetic American, but I am pro-people. I have never been in a city being bombed, but I have been next to it as we're dropping the bombs. And I can imagine being a city, when's it going to hit me? When's it going to hit me? When's it going to hit my kids? This is all happening because there's a lot of people in charge of religious authority and governments, however they got elected or put into place, that don't care about the people. They care about their personal power. And there's a lot of people out there making money on a lot of the.
Rob, do you think that Israel was justified in its preemptive strikes against Iran based on their belief that Iran was about to develop a nuclear weapon? I've seen that you said Iran has 4 ports, bombed them right now, crushed their ability to get anything, squeeze the populace to overthrow these Islamic bullies. We have anti-drone technology. They have no idea. We can dominate. We've just chosen not to do it now. So you would like to see the United States getting directly involved?
Well, no, I don't want to see them getting directly involved. And I mean, Israel, that they are trying to hit military targets. They even put leaflets out to get out of there. And I mean, and based on their intelligence, Mossad has proven they're the best in the world. If they can kill your scientists sending a missile through the room you're sleeping in, they know a lot more than I do. And we got to be honest, a lot of us don't know what's actually happening in Iran.
This is not even a fucking topic, but if Mossad can do that, then, why not do that to Hamas? Why are you why genocide an entire, never mind. just
I
doesn't
mean,
make
look
sense.
at the people. I think the way to you got to get rid of.
I mean, he's saying they're the best in the world. Why not just send the best in the world to go take out these so-called terrorists so that you can stop, bombing and killing innocent women and children constantly?
Of the religious clerics, but who's going to trust us? Who's going to trust the West? Look at how many times we've gone in, regime change, we abandon you. I mean, this is very complex, and most of us don't know what's happening in Iran anyway.
Yeah, okay. I want to bring in Aaron. He's not said a word. Thank you, Aaron, for your patience. It's all been very interesting. But what is your view here? I mean, obviously, I know you share Scott's view that America shouldn't get involved here. But do you understand why Israel has felt the way it has about the threat from Iran specifically? Because I don't think anybody doubts that Iran has funded, both financially and with weapons, Hezbollah, the Houthis, Hamas, and that they have all waged acts of terrorism, call it what you like, I call it terrorism, against Israel for many years. And that's all been done at the behest and help and support and enthusiastic support of Iran. If you're Israel, why would you not seek to try and dismantle a regime that has gone out of its way through proxy groups to destroy you?
Well, it depends what kind of government you are if you're Israel. If you're a government that is committed to peace in the region, you would explore the available diplomatic opportunities, and there have been plenty. If you're a government like Israel, which it actually is, which is committed to hegemony and supremacy, of course you will see any group or country that challenges your supremacy as a threat. And that's why Israel is going after Iran. Iran supports groups, and all of whom you named, that resist Israeli aggression. Hezbollah, for example, why does it exist? It was founded in response to Israel's invasion in 1982, which killed tens of thousands of people. The aim of that invasion was to basically wipe out the PLO, the main Palestinian group at that time. At a time when the PLO was calling actually increasingly for a compromise in which Palestinians accept a very, very small state. And that's the fundamental issue. Israel will not accept any right to Palestinian self-determination, and that's why it has enemies in the region. That's the fundamental problem. Iran even has endorsed the global consensus of a two-state solution in which Palestinians accept as 22% of their historic homeland, which was stolen from them by Israel. Even Iran has. Israel won't accept that because it's committed to occupation and supremacy. Iran has also proposed that there be a nuclear-free Middle East. So if you don't want us to get nuclear weapons, no one should have nuclear weapons. Israel won't even entertain that because Israel wants to threaten everybody else to preserve its hegemony. Scott invoked this 30 years ago. Iran also offered the U.S. to basically address all the issues on the table, including its support for Hezbollah. The Bush administration got that note from Iran and initially pretended they didn't even receive it before they ultimately ignored it. There also was the Iran nuclear deal, which everybody involved says Iran was respecting. It's only Israel, because of its foundational commitment to supremacy and aggression, which it continues to attack everybody else because it doesn't want anybody resisting its occupation and displacement, ethnic cleansing, and now mass murder of Palestinians.
Emily, your response to that?
Aaron, I'm glad you hit all the buzzwords that are fancy on social media, but I hate to break it to you. Why would and why should Israel reward terror groups and terror states their right to self-determination? If in 2005 they experimented essentially by giving Gaza to the Palestinian people, and their way of, I guess you could call it, proving that they can self-determine their own region, their own state, you can call it. Their way of doing that was by constantly attacking their neighbors, doing multiple October 7th on smaller scales, and constantly cheering and indoctrinating children to hate their neighbor and hate Jewish people. Please explain to me what any normal country would do other than resist and not want them to be their next door neighbor. Please do.
How do we get from talking about nuclear shit when Iran and Israel to Palestine?
Well, this is the point. Israel is not a normal country. It's an occupying country that was founded on ethnic cleansing and remains committed to that project. I'm glad you mentioned 2005. Why did Israel disengage from Gaza in 2005? The standard story is that Israel pulled out of Gaza, gave it back to the Palestinians, and they used that opportunity to turn Gaza into a terror state. Here's what actually happened. A top Israeli advisor, Dov Weisglass, explained at the time that the reason Israel disengaged from Gaza was that, first of all, it's costly to maintain settlers, illegal settlers in Gaza, when Israel really wants to steal Palestinian land in the West Bank. Second of all, the aim of the disengagement was to put what he called formaldehyde on the peace process, that if we pull back from Gaza, that will ease the pressure on us to give Palestinians a state, again, in a tiny sliver of their stolen land, the West Bank, Gaza, East Jerusalem, to 22% of their historic homeland. That's what every single Israeli action, whether it's disengaging from Gaza or now committing mass murder in Gaza, is oriented around. It's denying Palestinians their right to self-determination. If
Aaron,
Israel
I
were
have
a
a question. You have
excuse me,
expressed
hold on a second.
outrage.
Hold
Go
on a
ahead,
second.
finish.
Excuse me.
Apologize.
If Israel were a normal country, what it would do is say, we're going to, for the first time in our history, respect our own recognized borders, which are an Israeli state within the pre-1967 borders. Israel's not a normal state. It's an occupying state. It's an aggressive state, as it's showing now by committing terror against the people of Iran after more than a 1.5-year long genocide in Gaza. So if it were a normal state, Israel would say, these are our recognized borders, the ones that everybody recognizes. We're going to rise to the level of Iran and Hamas and the other Palestinian leadership, the Palestinian Authority, and finally say Palestinians can have a big surrender for them, but still a state of their own in the West Bank, Gaza, East Jerusalem. It won't do that because it's not a normal state. It's a Jewish supremacist state.
Okay,
So I
just
have a question.
hang on,
No, just
Emily.
quick response.
Okay, well, Emily, quick response, and then I'm going to.
Do you think Jordan's a normal state? Do you think Egypt's a normal state?
Explain what you mean by that.
You just said Israel's not a normal state. So I just asked you a question.
Yeah.
According to your own logic, is Jordan a normal state, and is Egypt a normal state?
Neither Jordan or Egypt are occupying millions of people and denying them their
Oh,
basic
wait,
rights.
I'm not done with my point.
Also
Basically,
committing
they
mass
are.
murder.
Wait, yes or no? Do you consider them normal states?
They're far more normal than Israel is, absolutely.
Okay,
They're not
both
committing
of them had jurisdiction over Gaza and also did not give Palestinians right to self-determination
But they
because
did.
they also
Oh,
didn't trust
shit.
them, as did Kuwait when they expelled
But
tens of
I think she's missing this point. I think the point is, did they occupy? Did they occupy?
thousands of Palestinians. But you consider Egypt and Jordan normal, or do you just hate Israel?
Israel is the state that was founded on ethnically cleansing all those Palestinians and denying them their
Buzzword,
basic rights to
Okay.
exist.
Here's what we can
Now,
move on.
I don't want to, it's not Gaza, it's not Egypt or Jordan's fault that Palestinians don't have a state of their own. They could do more to achieve that. Certainly. I wish they would stand up to Israel. Israel is the entity that refuses to give Palestinians their basic right to self-determination. They have millions of
Egypt and
people
Jordan
under
both
a barbaric
have-
occupation, and they never committed genocide, which Israel is currently doing in Gaza.
Right,
Okay,
look up the definition
let's
of
take
genocide.
I want to take a short break. Keep the panel just to listen to this interview I'm about to do with the Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace, who posted yesterday that President
Oh, fuck
Terrorism.
me. Go ahead. All right.
never have nukes. Well, welcome to you. Thanks for coming back on Uncensored. Pretty unequivocal there. Terrorists shouldn't have nukes. Trump is right. Do you think he's right if he now gets involved directly in this war?
I kind of want to speed
and
past this one.
commits
I
American
fucking
forces?
despise Nancy Mace.
Well, I think it depends on what you mean by directly. I mean, if that means taking out the Ayatollah, if that means taking out their nuclear sites with a 30,000-pound bunker buster delivered by a B-2, I'm okay with that. What Israel is doing right now is making the world much safer for everybody. And by the way, Israel is also supported by many of the Gulf states who don't want to see terrorists armed with nuclear weapons.
The argument, as you know, against what you've just said is that I remember people saying exactly the same kind of thing before the Iraq war, the Afghanistan war. It was
Right.
being done because it would make the world a safer place. Nobody can really look at what happened in Iraq or Afghanistan. I think it made the world safer at all. Why are you confident that it would with Iran?
I agree with you there. And in fact, I was against the war in Iraq for
So what changed?
the reasons that we went after Saddam Hussein. We didn't have weapons of mass destruction. There was not evidence of that. And I've been very vocal about that. This is different. This is different based on real intelligence. I was overseas in the Middle East a few months
Wait. This was based on quote unquote real intelligence when they went to Iraq. Like, what is she talking about?
ago. I visited Israel. I've had those conversations. I do believe that Iran was very
We're always told, oh, this is based on real
very
intelligence.
close and is very close to having a nuclear warhead. The threat is real, and it's not just about Israel. Israel's just the tip of the spear. This is about our national security. Iran, if they get a nuclear weapon, they're not just going to bomb Israel. They're going to use it against all their enemies if they can. And we have to
I gotta
make
get
sure
something
that
from
we can live peacefully, that people can live peacefully in the Middle East. And Iran is, I mean, Israel is doing the work for everybody else in the Middle East right now. And I support their endeavor, and I hope they finish the job.
We've had Tulsi Gabbard, Director of National Intelligence. She said literally just 2 months ago that there was no evidence that the United States had determined that what you just said is correct in terms of Iran's ability to create a nuclear weapon imminently. And we've had the Atomic Agency say the same thing. I saw the director on television last night saying he'd not seen anything. How come you know?
Because Republicans, they live in their, some Republicans, especially this crazy nutcase, they live in their own fucking reality. They can literally be told by professionals, this is not happening. This is not true. They're going to say, I hear you, but I don't trust. I will never, ever trust the professionals. Remember, Donald Trump said that. Don't trust the professionals. And every silly motherfucker ran with it. Don't trust the professionals.
There is the evidence of that.
And I don't even like Tulsi Gabbard, but if she's like not biased enough to actually, but well, they don't have this shit. There's no fucking proof that this is happening. You're literally doing shit.
But Tulsi Gabbard doesn't, and nor do the atomic agencies.
Well, as Donald Trump, as President Trump said the other day, I agree with him. Based on intelligence I have been briefed on, that they were close. And Trump.
Wait, how do you get more intelligence than Tulsi Gabbard? You're part of the fucking Doge committee, correct? And all you do is fucking sit there in the Doge committee and talk about trans people. That's all she ever does. How do you? This
Right,
cabinet
as he's
sucks
always been
ass.
right. He stated the other day that he believed Iran was close to being armed with nukes, and he's correct. I believe what his statement that he said was true.
Last night was a fascinating dust-up between Senator Ted Cruz and Tucker Carlson.
This is fucking
It
crazy.
kind of laid bare the split on the conservative right in America, with many lining up to support Trump and intervention, and many saying this would be a total betrayal of everything that people voted for when they voted for Donald Trump last November. How do you explain that the conservative right is so divided over this?
Nobody wants a forever war with Iran. We don't want to send our men and women in uniform to go die in Iran. I believe that once the regime, the mullahs, the Ayatollah, and the rest of his team are taken out, I believe that people will rise, because over 80% of Iranians, they want freedom, they want democracy, they want a non-nuclear Iran. There are leaders outside of Iran right now waiting to step in to help take over in a new government if one should occur, if that should occur. The other thing
is
is
that?
that,
Who is that?
in terms of Israel and the United States and this whole situation, is that Israel's doing the fight. And while they're fighting, if we are supporting them with some air support or radar or whatever, that's not the same thing as a war with Iran or troops on the ground. If we supply them with a missile that can blow up their nuclear facilities deep below the bunkers, that's not the same thing as a full on-out war. That's supporting our ally Israel, who's the only Jewish state.
Well,
in the world.
technically, yeah, but it actually that would be. I mean, because only an American pilot would be flying that plane that would drop that bomb that you're talking about.
Yeah, that's
And
just so
Yeah,
fucking
potentially, but it's a
stupid.
different
But in
bro.
that scenario,
I think there's a
America
nuance there.
but in that scenario, America absolutely will have joined the war.
Yeah,
It will be
the
doing the
fuck?
bombing. It's about a clearer evidence of acting a war
But it's
against
different
somebody
than,
you
would
can
you agree
imagine.
that it's different than
She needs to go back and do these fucking Doge committees or some shit. She doesn't know what she's talking about. I hate it when people out of their depth try to talk about situations like
having
this.
troops on the ground?
Do some more
Having
fucking
a ground war
research.
with troops on the ground versus supplying the arms necessary to take out all of their nuclear facilities. I think those are two very different levels of interaction there.
Do you
If we're if we're actually shooting and actively bombing. I don't even care if it's in self-defense. We are participating in this war. So if we go over there to assist Israel by deflecting bombs or what have you, by taking out the bombs, we are actively participating in this war. It's just admitted.
Feel the same about Ukraine and their right to defend themselves against marauding Russian dictators and their forces?
I do. And I've supported Ukraine up until a point, probably in the last year or so, where I felt we were expending too much. And
So they should die.
some of what we sent over wasn't even working over to Ukraine. And it's also a very different situation. Having a nuclear Iran is something that President Trump has never wanted. That goes back 15 years, and I support him wholeheartedly in this effort. And I hope that Israel
If he never
finishes the
wanted
job.
it, then why did he rip up
Nancy
the
Mace,
deal?
Thank you very much indeed for joining me.
Thank you.
There was
Right,
already
so
a
let's
deal.
go back to the panel. Scott, I could see that you weren't entirely buying everything that Nancy Mace was saying there.
It's just absurdity on top of absurdity there. The director of national intelligence is wrong, and Iran was, in fact, they were too making a nuclear bomb. Why? Because she believes it. And she says, I saw the intelligence. I went to Israel, and they briefed me and told me. Yeah, so she's choosing what the Mossad told her when she went on a trip to a foreign country over what
Literally,
the director of
bro.
national intelligence, who works for her current president that she favors, is reporting on behalf of the consensus of America's intelligence community that there's actually no shift there whatsoever. It's completely ridiculous. I love that. Iraq war opponents for a preemptive, supposed aggressive war, definitely aggressive war against Iran is just completely absurd. And I want to say, all due respect to Rob here, it's an important story, although it's an old one, but he mentioned it, about the 500, it's usually estimated up to 600 Americans who were killed fighting the Shiites in 2007 in Iraq War II. And the reality is, and I have in my book, I cite a solid dozen sources at least of American reporters and international reporters on patrol with American soldiers fighting against Muqtada al-Sadr's forces and in East Baghdad and in Najaf. And they found the EFP factories over and over and over again in Iraq. Those EFPs, the copper core, explosively foreign penetrators, improved IEDs, were being made in Iraq by Iraqis. And yes, it's true that it was Muqtada al-Sadr and the Shiites, and they were somewhat supported by Iran. But you notice the way Nancy Mace says any American support to Israel, whatever they do, that's just Israel. But if Iran gives a hand to Muqtada al-Sadr, or if Iran gives a hand to Hamas in any way, then they are just a proxy, and anything they do is all Iran's responsibility. But what was really going on there was, if you zoom out, the entire war of Iraq War II was fought for Muqtada al-Sadr. He's one of the most important kingmakers in that country to this day, and he was part of the United Iraqi Alliance with the Supreme Islamic Council and the Dawa Party, and America fought the whole war for him, except for a couple times when they stopped and fought against him, and including in this giant propaganda campaign in 2007 by Dick Cheney, David Petraeus, and Michael Gordon, especially at the New York Times, pushing this lie about the EFPs because they were trying to justify starting a war with Iran then. And George Bush finally put his foot down and said no. And so, there's a kernel of truth in that, but it's always embellished. And usually, although I don't believe Rob said this directly, but it's usually embellished to the point where it's just Iran killed 600 Americans in Iraq War II, which is just purely false.
Okay. Rob, I want to ask you a slightly wider question, which is something that's been baffling me, which is Mossad clearly have been unbelievably skillful from a technology point of view in the way they dismantled Hezbollah with those pages, with many years in the making. They seem to have been equally successful so far in specifically targeting military commanders, nuclear scientists, nuclear sites, and so on in Tehran, albeit with some civilian casualties too. But it's been very surgically precise from a military perspective. And yet in Gaza, it appears to be the complete opposite. And they've been getting more and more opprobrium from around the world, from former Israeli prime ministers to many of the allies of Israel, traditional allies, because they just seem to be trying to obliterate everything that's in front of them in Gaza. I mean, do you buy the argument that just because Hamas has a policy of putting itself and its terrorists amongst civilian population, that is the only way to defeat them?
Well, I mean, I'm a believer that because of October 7th, Israel knows it needs to wipe Hamas out. I mean, you're not born hating. You're taught to hate. You're taught to be racist. And a lot of these poor kids that are raised around Hamas, all they know is cut the heads off the dirty Jews. That's exactly what they're saying. I mean, it's horrible, the words that they use. I'm upset with myself just for saying that right now, but that's what they're teaching them. And like, my question too is, okay, a two-party state. Here's a serious question. You get Palestine. Who's gonna lead it? Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Islamic Jihad, Hezbollah, Hamas. You're getting more of the same. You need to have real leadership. And again, with the conversations we're having right now, I mean, first of all, I've been to Sadr City, I've been to Najaf. I'm definitely going to read Scott's book, because I think it is important to try to. You shouldn't be sitting in a room with people that just agree in an echo chamber. I'm very interested now to reading that. If were these EFPs that killed a lot of Americans made in Iraq? Neither here nor there. I mean, if you're trying to tell me that a lot of American kids weren't blown up and killed and maimed and watch their friends blown in half, and now just a ton of traumatic brain injury, and I've seen it. It's there. It's real.
No, I'm just saying Iran didn't do it.
I'm
only saying Iran didn't do it. I'm not challenging the deaths and the chaos of that war. It was terrible.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. I saw it. You see it?
From here, and
no,
it was
I'll
bad
just take your silence
here.
as no, you didn't see it. But I'm just saying it's all based on their religion and the end of their times.
Okay. I respect the military people who serve, but don't come on a show and consistently say, "Did you see it?" Because they weren't physically there. Things are documented for a reason, so that we can see it. No, I don't think he sat there like you did, and on the front lines, you signed up, you put your body on the line respectfully. But I hate when people who served come on these internets and say that shit. It's like, come on, bro. Just because you wasn't there, but we have documentation to show what happened. It's called education. Like,
there's so much going on. You know what part of the issue too with all these wars, the first Gulf War, hey, go back to Vietnam,
in my opinion, that's a horrible argument to say, have you been there? Asking somebody, have you gone? Have you been there? Is a stupid argument.
To Korea,
it's a stupid argument.
The first Gulf War, the second Gulf War. Why did we bomb Bosnia? Then go into obviously we know why we went into Afghanistan, Pakistan, Yemen, Somalia. You know who's been watching us the entire time? China.
Okay.
Rob, the last clip that I saw of you before today's show was a short clip of you on the Sean Ryan show talking about how you killed this guy in his house because he went for a gun. And then later on, thought to yourself, what was I doing there? Why did I kill this guy? I wonder if he was funny. I wonder if we could have had a drink. Because and the way you finished the story, because you believe George Bush's lies. He set you on a fool's errand, to fight for Iran in Iraq War II that whole time. My friend, you should be over it by now. I can't understand how you could be rallying behind the war party. You're the one they betrayed.
I don't want to go to war too. Like I said, after 9/11, I believed anything, and that's what our industrial complex did. I mean, Iraq is so complicated. We never should have invaded. We shouldn't have left how we did. We formed ISIS. But yeah, I mean, that realization of a dude that I shot that I didn't even know because he went for a gun. He went for a gun because I was his worst nightmare in his room at 2 a.m. simply because George Bush didn't like what Saddam Hussein said about his dad. I'm admitting that right now. I mean, I'm not on here as some pro-war guy. I'd love it if it all ended. The conversations need to be had. And we've proven for a long, long time that bombs and bullets aren't exactly working. And it's the same story every single time. They're so close, we got to bomb them. Look at Gaddafi was running Libya. He gave up his nukes. We went in there, we made up the Arab Spring, bombed him, killed him, and all of a sudden there's open slave markets. This war stuff's not really working. I'm not a pro-war guy.
Can I make a point here? The reason to oppose war is not because it doesn't work. It's because you have no right to do it. You had no right as an illegal aggressor to invade Iraq. That was based on a lie, and the U.S. had no right to bomb it. Just as Israel has no right to bomb Iran, which is not threatening Israel. Israel has no right to occupy the people of Palestine. It only has the obligation to stop occupying them. And on that point, I've been to Gaza. I'm Jewish myself. I was treated very well. I met children. They're not taught to hate. They're just taught to have their eyes open and see what's in front of them.
What rock are you living on?
Israeli occupation that has denied them their basic rights. It's put them in a cage. If you don't want Hamas there, don't put them under one of the most sadistic military occupations in the world, in which Israel controls even what kind of food people can eat, which now has been reduced to Holocaust levels. 20 years ago, that was at the levels where Israel was counting the calories, literally, so that they would give the people of Gaza just enough food so there wouldn't be a full-blown starvation crisis. One Israeli official referred to this as putting them on a diet. That's called sadism, and it's the root cause of all problems in the Middle East. If you don't want wars, if you don't want conflict, the first place to start is with our aggression, our tyranny. And the fundamental tyranny that threatens everybody is Israel's oppression and now mass murder of the Palestinian people.
Okay, I want to play, Emily, I want to play.
Can I ask a question really quickly here? Since other than the Palestinians electing Hamas, Israel's the only democracy in the Middle East. If that goes away like you want it to, where are all the homosexuals and trans going to go? Because that's the only place in the Middle East they're welcome.
Okay, first of all, this notion that Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East, try telling that to the millions of Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza who have been ruled by Israel for decades now and can't vote for their leaders, can't even move without Israeli permission, who die at checkpoints because Israel denies them medical care, who lack food and water. Right now in Gaza, there's literally a starvation crisis because Israel is controlling everything that comes in with the starvation siege. This notion that Israel is a democracy is a complete lie. Yes, it's a democracy nominally internally for the people that have Israeli citizenship, but not for the millions of Palestinians that it rules over in the West Bank and Gaza. It's not a democracy, it's a tyranny for them.
All right, Emily, I want to play, hang on. I want to play a clip. This is President Trump today talking about Iran. Watch this.
President, what do you say to the Supreme Leader of Iran who says that they will not surrender?
Say good luck.
And what is the end game?
Say it?
I know the patience run out.
It's already run out. That's why we're doing what we're doing.
You just take out.
Yeah, they had 60 days and a big, 60 days, plenty of time. And they made a mistake. Honestly, they made a mistake. Their country's in ruins. So many people are dead that shouldn't be dead. It's a very sad thing.
So, Emily, Donald Trump is about to make possibly the most consequential decision of his life. This is a man who's been persistently
He doesn't even sound sure
in his
answers.
Wanting to end wars, not start them. Proud of the fact in his first term he didn't start any significant war. But here he might be actively engaging in starting an American war, albeit with Israel, against Iran. Do you not feel, after what happened with Iraq, after what happened with Afghanistan, do you not feel this is a massive roll of the dice? And that Tucker Carlson, in his pretty apocalyptic warning, someone who's a pro-Trump guy, voted for Trump, says this could end his presidency.
It's very dramatic and hysterical, if you ask me. Before I answer that question, I just want to point out that Aaron believes America has no right to interject into what's happening in Iran, but Hamas has the right to pull on October 7th and invade Israel because of the false narrative that they're occupied. So now moving on from that, I watched what Trump said this morning. I watched it live, actually. And I feel like the issue here is that everyone's equivocating what's happening in Iran to Iraq and Afghanistan. I'd argue that the people of Iran, the Persian people, are a bit more sophisticated than what Iraq was and what Afghanistan was, a little bit more secular. Half of them are resisting the regime, are calling for a regime change. Do I think it's America's burden to reassure that if they have a new whatever you want to call it, supreme leader, president, hopefully something more democratic? No. However, I do believe that at the very least, if we get rid of their nuclear facilities, the whole world is a better place. Trust me, the entire Middle East will be happy. UAE, Saudi, all the countries that are going more Western will be thanking us for that.
She would rather doom the entire world than just admit that her fucking Lord and Savior is fucking up right now by committing to siding with Israel and trying to join this war. Let Israel fight for themselves. That is their fight. They're the ones who started it. They did the preemptive strike. You can't throw rocks at somebody and not expect somebody to throw a boulder back. So that's on them. I don't know why we're playing Big Brother.
And at the very best, within Iran, once it's in ruins, as Trump said, it won't be in ruins. We'll get a B-2 bomb. But once they have the opportunity to, they can overthrow the regime and state what it was pre-79. They don't need to be oppressed by their own anymore. The Iranian people are taking the streets. And they're not chanting death to America.
Before you start doing that, like let's get Israel to stop oppressing Palestinians first.
Anymore. They're chanting death to the dictator. So I feel like they're ready for this change. And it's not Iraq and it's not Afghanistan.
I mean, the parallel with Iraq, though, I would say is quite clear in that was fought on what turned out to be an entirely false pretext that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction.
That's like my biggest thing is like on this entire fucking debate or debacle or discussion is like no one has provided any sort of proof. All relevant intel has said that they're not doing this. There's no nuclear weapons. They're not trying to build any nuclear weapons in Iran. But yet we're still here sucking the teat of fucking Israel because Israel says, hey, Iran is like 2 seconds away from building a bomb. He's been saying that for like, what, 30 years now? That they're like 2 seconds away, 2 weeks away, 1 month away, 1 year away. Like, at some point, you just got to admit he's fucking obsessed.
Destruction. And here there is a belief put out by Prime Minister Netanyahu that Iran is imminently about to create a nuclear bomb, but nobody else outside of Israel.
He said that then too.
Yeah, but nobody else outside of Israel seems to agree. I mean, Scott, this is the dilemma for Donald Trump, is that there is a part of his support that's dragging him into engaging in this war, but there's another.
Due diligence? Come on, he's not that naive.
Well, the problem is that all those who
Yes, the fuck he is.
Specific job it is to do that due diligence are saying that Iran is nowhere near it. And that's what would stop me in my tracks if I was president of the United States. Is like, am I going to believe the Israelis, led by Netanyahu, who's been saying this for decades, without actual evidence that it's about to create a bomb or not?
I don't think we know whether or not he was presented with evidence by Netanyahu. I don't think Trump shows all of the reports.
You see, I don't think she's fucking listening. What he's saying is that our fucking intelligence is telling him or saying that there is no evidence that Iran has nukes or is planning to build nukes. And he is choosing to, instead of going with our intelligence, believing the United States intelligence, to believe what Israel is saying. Literally saying fuck you to the people he put in office. He put them in these positions. And he's saying fuck you, I'm just going to believe a foreign government.
Single person in the United States or abroad. I really have a very hard time believing.
That's not doing your due diligence as a president of the United States. That's not doing your due diligence. That's doing your due diligence as the cuck of Israel. That's it.
And Yahoo called him, said, hey bro, trust me, they have a nuclear weapon. And Trump was like, yeah, let's get involved.
Literally, that's exactly what happened. That's what happened. Like literally, if Tulsi Gabbard is telling you, "Hey, no, we don't have this. This is not happening here." If there are other people that are telling you that this is not happening here, or people are just trying to figure out why you're doing this with zero proof, right? And I know this administration likes to do shit with zero proof. That's all it's asking. If your own cabinet members, if your own agencies are telling you, no, Iran is not doing this, then why would you believe Israel over them? It doesn't make any sense.
In recent days by leaks to CNN and the New York Times, in which as Scott mentioned earlier, even the latest intelligence reports say the same thing, and there was no convincing evidence provided by Israel. This is basically the Iraq WMD hoax, wherein Dick Cheney, got the intelligence. He knew there was no Iraq WMD, so he ordered it to be fabricated, including through torture. This is basically the Iraq WMD hoax, except this time Trump isn't bothering to fabricate. He's just outsourcing the job to Israel.
Okay, Scott.
The only thing the scary part about all this is that Iran could be building nukes. But the problem is like we're so fucking discombobulated that we don't trust what's coming out of the government's mouth because our own president of the United States isn't listening to the intelligence that he put together. If our president isn't doing that and he's believing what Putin is saying, he's going to believe what Netanyahu is saying. Like, what's the fucking point? It'll be boy who cried wolf one day.
This is a hell of a roll of the dice if Trump pulls the trigger on getting involved in this. I mean, I do think it's going to be extraordinarily consequential.
Yeah. Well, and look, he should not get involved at all, and Israel should call it off right now, short of regime change. The idea that, oh, and this reminds me of the funniest thing that Nancy Mace said in that interview was, oh, yeah, well, you know what, we'll just kill the regime, and then the people will rise up, and, you know, they'll just figure it out. It'll be fine. This is exactly what I'll never forget Representative Bob Dornan in 2011 talking about how, yes, we should support al-Qaeda to overthrow the government in Damascus, Syria, because, well, you know, we don't know who's going to replace him, but I'm sure someone will come to the fore, he said. And now who came to the fore? First, the Islamic State bin Ladenite caliphate that was so bad that America had to launch Iraq War III to destroy it again, in alliance with Iran, by the way, providing them direct air cover as they took back to Crete. But anyway, and then after that, now al-Qaeda has broken out of the Idlib province, the al-Nusra Front, and sacked Damascus last December, and are the ruling regime there, now recognized by Donald Trump. That's who came to the fore in Syria when America got rid of the secular Alawite dictatorship. Iran is different. Yes, it's much more sophisticated. You mean their population is almost 100 million people, and that there are Sunni Arabs and Shiite Persians and Azeris and Baluchs and all kinds of different people that you've never heard of, with all of their own factional differences, religious and sectarian differences, and historical grudges, who are sure to go to bloody civil war to take over. You say, oh, there's foreigners waiting to come in. It'll be just like before 79 when they were free? You mean when they were under the American-backed sock puppet dictator, the Shah Reza Pahlavi, which is who they're talking about parachuting his son in now. Maybe that's all Trump meant, Pierce, when he gave that speech in Qatar denouncing neoconservatism. He said, forget democracy. Maybe he just meant we're going to reinstall His Royal Majesty, His Highness, to be the iron-fisted monarch of Persia again. Anyone listening to this who thinks that that is credible, that that's going to work, that any new regime America installs there is not going to immediately face a vast insurgency from the people of that vast and mountainous country, are insane.
Okay,
You need to get your head checked. Every one of you people.
Let me give the final word to Rob O'Neill. Rob, if you were able to speak to President Trump today as he mulls up what to do here, what would you advise him? To go in?
Well, I would
stay
advise him to definitely sit down with his close advisors and don't be so eager to start bombing anywhere. We've already admitted that we're fueling their planes. We've got refuelers all over the place. But I mean, what Scott just said was pretty much right. I agreed with most of it, and the regime change doesn't work. So you got to be really, really careful with, hey, the people will just rise up and we'll see what happens. Because like Scott was just saying, there are so many groups over there you don't know who they are, and sometimes the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. Again, so complex, a lot put out there, but you know, not all wrong. So no, I would say be very careful to include who you trust. Because there are people in the United States government and the Israeli government who really, really want war for different reasons other than just protecting the homeland. We've heard it before. Listen to your people, do your research, and just, you know, take a pause. I've always said, especially in gunfights, if you want to be fast, slow down.
Very sensible words to end on. Thank you to my panel very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Fucking W. That's actually a pretty good thing to say, because like I honestly feel like if we go to war again, if we do this destabilizing shit again, then like what we're going to do is just give birth. Like they said it at the end of it. Once again, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go in, fuck shit up, or help somebody fuck shit up, like provide weapons to some bunch of band of weirdos, and all of a sudden now you have ISIS. So it's like, it's, you know, sometimes we just need to stay in our fucking lane as a fucking country. Like we need to stop being the fucking world police, because we don't know what the